There we go. Where are we? Hey, there we are. YouTube has had technical difficulties for the last 2 days. It's gotten pretty bad. Come on, YouTube, get it together. Just gonna set up the goal in the background. Setting up the live chat on the screen here, just to make sure that we're keeping up with it. The mobile device doesn't always show the entire chat due to YouTube technical difficulties. So let me just finish setting that up. Hey, Rita. Yeah, I don't know how many people we're gonna get in here today. Hey, Sassy Granny. Hey, I saw that you became a member last night. Thank you so much. YouTube doesn't even send me that notification, and I had to see it on the back end, like on what's called YouTube Studio. That's sort of like the back end of my channel. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, wow. Because I saw you had been communicating, and I also saw that you went to the Amazon wish list and purchased 2 items. So I look forward to going to the business box next week and picking those up. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you so much. Hey, Donna. Haven't seen you in a while. I've seen you on the other chats, but I haven't seen you in my chat for a while. How you doing, Donna? Thank you so much, Sassy Granny. That's amazing. Oh, I'm glad you are. And I hope, I know everybody wants me to talk about Nancy Guthrie every day, and I could, but this is a big case from 25, 26 years ago. And there's just been some shocking news that has come out. So let me give it a few minutes to get people to come in. Oh, I'm glad you saw me on too, Donna. Yeah, I've seen you over on Humble's channel. 13 people. Wow, okay. Well, I'm April Davis PI, and I am a licensed PI in the state of California. Coming live right here from Los Angeles. It's May the 2nd, 2026. And I can't believe that I'm going to have to talk about something, or I chose to talk about this, but this is important. I've got a new tripod here, and it kind of blocks my screen, but it's excellent because it's not going to fall over like the old one. But I still got to figure out my setup here so that I can see you guys. Let me move this, and I can see the computer screen that I'm trying to see. Does anybody remember the case of Chandra Levy? She was a young intern that was born in Cleveland, grew up in Modesto, California, went to college, even got a master's degree. Very smart young lady. She moved to Washington, D.C. She was an intern for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, I believe. Who remembers that? T.N. Freeman, or no, Tennessee Freemason. That's it. I got it. Donna, always on there. Even put him on if I have to sleep. I turn on comment and go to sleep. Okay. um. Anyway, okay. So this was a young gal. Like I said, very educated. Definitely not stupid. Um. However, she was involved romantically with a married congressman, Gary. Was it Condit from California? He served in the same area that she grew up in. Um, Her parents were fully aware. She's very close to her parents. She was from a Jewish family. They were aware of her relationship with Congressman Condit. Apparently, not only was he married, but he was also allegedly, reportedly having an affair with someone else at the time. Now, that's not what this is all about, but during the relationship with Congressman Condit, Sandra Levy became a missing person. She just vanished. There was no sign of a break in her apartment, no sign of a struggle. He became a prime suspect in her disappearance. It was her parents who called the police that said, hey, our daughter's missing. We haven't heard from her in 5 days. They went to the apartment to do a life check. She wasn't there. They did secure her computer. Originally, whoever was doing the computer um, deep dive had corrupted it. It took a while to get it uncorrupted to find out what she had been looking at before she had either been taken or had left on her own free will. They got a connection to Rock Creek Park, which is a large, very beautiful park in Washington, D.C. I used to live there, but not right on the DC, like, I was not on the DC side, I was right on the other side, and it was many, many years ago. And I only lived there briefly, so I don't think I ever had the opportunity to visit Rock Creek Park, but it's really a pretty place. If you ever go to DC, check it out. And that's where they started looking for her. They had a huge search party. The first year, they didn't find anything, but it turns out they didn't search the entire park. And more than a year after her disappearance, a jogger was in that park, and they found what appeared to be, I have to be careful what I say here now that I'm monetized, but human remains. And eventually they were, through DNA, they were confirmed to be the remains of this young intern, Chandra Levy, who, if I can move this away from my screen, this is terrible. I got to figure this out, how I can see the screen in front of me. Um, she disappeared at age 24. I thought she was 25, but this says 24. I just can't see the screen behind me. And this new setup, I love it. Somebody bought this as a gift for the channel, but I got to figure out how I can see my desktop and not have this blocking like the important columns in front of me. So anyway, hey, pretty princess. Hey, Jane Rice. So long story short, she disappeared. This congressman was heavily investigated. Eventually, and her parents thought that he may have been involved in her disappearance. And more than a year later, when they did another search of Rock Creek Park, I guess a jogger was in a remote area that was down a slope, and he found what appeared to be human remains. It was her. It was identified, uh, but it was unsolved for quite some time. But then a local jailhouse informant pointed to this guy from El Salvador. He eventually went to trial, initially was convicted, but then they found out that this witness was not a great witness, that there had been witness tampering, possibly. I don't remember all the gory details of it because this was so long ago. But eventually, what happened is the guy's case ended up being overturned, and the federal government released him for deportation back to El Salvador in 2017. So he was behind bars for that case, and apparently involved in two other essays, but he always claimed his innocence. But the informant said, hey, he did this because Gary Condit paid him $25,000 to, basically unalive her. That's never been proven. They were never able to find the cause of death. It was just, oh, I'm seeing comments behind me that are not actually showing up on this screen. So let me adjust the settings. I was afraid that was going to happen. Let's see. Oh, here they are. The judge's policies, FBI are setting the bomb at the airport. What is this? Okay. We have to put a couple people on timeouts here. The joys of monetization. Okay. Well, thank you for the click. So, Kathy, hello. So, long story short, eventually this guy was convicted, but then he was later released. To this date, the parents, they don't even know if this creep is still a living and breathing person. They're not even 100% sure of that guy, the guy that got convicted of his involvement. They're not even sure if the older congressman that their daughter was having a relationship with, if he was or wasn't involved. Eventually, He did not resign, but he just never got reelected, and that was basically the end of his political career. I haven't done extensive research on it, but he just kind of faded away. Now, after this guy, he just kind of faded away, and the parents were just left. Oh, thank you for the red hearts. The parents were left with the loss of their daughter. I can't remember, but she might have been an only child. I'll have to look that up. I knew a lot about this case, like, 25, 26 years ago. But, a lot has happened in the world and a lot has happened to me. And, that was a long, long time ago. And this week, you'll hear it from me if you haven't already heard the news. Her parents, who are now elderly, they're an elderly couple, but still alive, they went on to News Nation, I guess within the last day or so, and gave an interview stating that they believe their daughter's disappearance and subsequent, unaliving may have something to do with all of these missing people, these government workers and scientists that have recently gone missing or have been found suspiciously deceased. Um, they say that she believed in UFOs and that she told her parents that Congressman Condit also believed in that. And apparently, he was one of the members of the U.S. government that had access to some of the privileged information on that subject. And as you know, there's more and more people starting to be found missing or gone that were either military personnel or defense contractors or civilians who worked on government programs. And they're not saying 100% sure, but they're saying there's a possibility that their daughter may have known, you know, things that could have contributed to her disappearance. And they actually, we're not going to get political here, but they did bring up President Trump and how President Trump wants full disclosure regarding this subject. And since then, all these people are disappearing, and they brought in, they reminded the audience that, hey, this has happened before with President John Kennedy, allegedly, Marilyn Monroe, allegedly, may have been silenced because of this topic. I can't really talk about that case because even though I wasn't even alive when she was born, I do know a lot about that case. And even though her death was ruled an intentional self unaliving, that's not what really occurred, in my opinion. So her parents, they're a lot older than I am. They're old enough to remember probably that time in history where, you know, she passed and John F. Kennedy passed, and they believe that there is a secret CIA program that's, basically taking people out because of this upcoming disclosure that the President of the United States has asked for. Hello, Arizona Desert Walker. Hello, VMIS. So even though this is a very, very old case from like, what was it, 2000? I think it was 2000 she disappeared and then she was found in 2001. Let me see. Oh no, disappeared May 1st, 2001. And her remains were discovered May 2022. Yeah, and she was age 24. I'm trying to see over this new tripod. I've got to figure out how I can see my screen and have this wonderful gift that was sent to me at the same time where it all works. Oh, no problem, Arizona Desert Walker. Um, yeah. So, and then the case with the guy that was accused of doing it. I think it's pronounced Gandake. He was an El Salvadorian. Eventually, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison, but then he was granted a new trial. But then the trial never happened, and eventually he was completely released and just deported out of our country. But it's never really been concluded one way or the other that he was the killer or that he was hired by the congressman because the informant claimed he was paid $25,000 to take her out. The congressman, they did have some sort of evidence that he had gone into her place and removed, I think it was a piece of jewelry or a gift, and had put it in a garbage in Washington, D.C. I forget how they proved all that, and then he did admit to the police that he was in a relationship with her, but he refused to talk about it due to privacy during the trial. He never was charged with anything, just so you know. But, what a stinker that guy was. Oh, you know, I don't even wanna go there. The type of person that, he appeared to be at that time. No, that is Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. That is the beautiful location where Chandra Levy's remains were found in 2001. And what's really sad is that they had searched the park before and they didn't find her. And then when the jogger came across some remains and some clothing items, like some shoes and like a jogging outfit, um, and then they retrieved her, they didn't retrieve all of her apparently. And the parents hired private investigators and additional search teams who went in after the fact, like maybe even years later and retrieved more of her. Um, no, this is my little Machine Gun Kelly beanie. So, no, it's not Minneapolis, it's Washington, D.C. But yeah, like I know it's an old case and I'm having to refresh my memory. I didn't even remember that she was from Cleveland, but was raised in Modesto, and she had a master's in public administration from USC. So, this was not a dumb person. This was a young person who, in her personal life. Oh, hey, Quentin, thank you so much. You're the first one today. I appreciate you. So, I know a lot of people probably aren't going to tune into this because some people are going to be like, I don't even remember who this is. But I do have an older audience here. I've looked at my stats on the back end of YouTube on studio, and this is not going to be a long one today. But considering that I've already done a video or two where we have talked about the missing general and some of the other people, and there's been several other missing or unalive people that have been added to the list since I did my live on that. Now this is coming out. And the parents are not saying for sure that it's all connected, but that, their daughter was a proponent of, believing in UFOs, and that this man that she was having this, extramarital affair with, this congressman, that he also believed, and that he was actually involved through his work as a US congressman on different things in the government that had to do with, top secret information regarding that. So she may have known things that, excuse me, that she wasn't allowed to know. Um, we don't really know because, we can't ask the deceased questions, but it always seemed like there was a lot more involved in this. It wasn't just somebody trying to cover up an affair. Uh, oh, from the K Club. Is it Texas Mopar or Tex Mopar? I'm not sure how to pronounce the avatar, but the K Club, yes. Hi, V Miss. Let's see, who else have I missed? Oh, you were already in here, V Miss. Yeah, like, what do you guys think about this? Does anybody here that's watching now remember the Chandra Levy case? I remember it well because I lived in California at the time, and this was a young girl from California. And it sounds like she was in over her head with this guy, but she wasn't exactly hiding it because apparently she'd had a lot of confidential conversations with an aunt. Her parents somewhat knew too, but she had been confiding in her aunt about the relationship with this man. And apparently, just before she disappeared, she said she was going to make an announcement or something, I remember, but then she never was able to do that because she disappeared. Sassy Granny says she does remember it. Yeah, like it was a big case. It was a big case at the time because, she was a pretty young girl and, you know, very intelligent, very educated, and, she was very supportive of the government, maybe a patriot you could describe her as. You'd have to ask her parents. Uh, but got involved with the wrong person, it looks like, and then ended up disappearing. Now, he was never, Congressman Condit was never charged with anything. But for years, people suspected that he might have had something to do with it, but he might not have. And now, the parents, all these years later, after the creep that was convicted, who was later completely released and deported, you know, now the news is coming out about all these missing people connected to the government, and they've gone down the rabbit hole that because of what Congressman Condit was involved in, that maybe she may have actually been one of those victims. Because, they did go back all the way to the 1960s, the early 60s. That's before I was even here, talking about how, John F. Kennedy was unalived. And that's very debatable about what happened. I wasn't born when that happened. I also wasn't born when Marilyn Monroe was here and then later not here. I did work with a private investigator years ago who did know a lot about that case. And there is a lot of things that were never disclosed publicly about that case. Wasn't she in Washington, D.C.? Yes, she was, Quentin. And this picture that's behind me, this green screen, is um, Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. And I actually lived in Maryland, right on the D.C. line, briefly when I was 17. But I spent most of my time visiting California friends in New Jersey while I lived there. I'd graduated college or graduated high school early, started college early, spent a lot of time in New Jersey, and was just preparing during the time that I lived there to come home to California. So I didn't really get to see a lot of DC while I lived there. But it is a beautiful area, especially in Maryland. It was almost like it felt kind of like New England. Diane, howdy, folk. Hope everyone is doing great. Sorry, I'm late as usual. No problem. Yeah, this isn't going to be a long one. I was just recapping the latest shocking news, actually, from the Chandra Levy case. That case was a long, long time ago. Like, I think it was May 2000. She was found late May 2020 or 2001. Eventually someone was convicted, but then later was going to have a new trial. That new trial never happened. It was eventually released by the government because I believe he was prosecuted federally, if I recall, because it happened in the District of Columbia. But, he eventually did get let out, got deported back to El Salvador, and never to be seen or heard from again. Even the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Levy, they don't know whatever happened to the guy. They don't know if he's even still alive. And he was quite young. I think he was only 20 when all of this happened. So he would have been actually younger than the daughter that disappeared. But it was never proven her cause of death. It was never proven if this Congressman Condit was involved. But now, and they're elderly and they're still like not as much as they used to be because they've said that, you do have to go on with your everyday life. But they still, feel like from a spiritual standpoint that they communicate with her occasionally and that this is something that is a possibility. They're not saying that this is exactly what happened, you know, but that the CIA allegedly has this program that is removing people from these government jobs or these defense jobs that are involved in the UFO community, and that possibly because of Congressman Condit's involvement in the UFO community and his, relationship with their daughter, and she having the same ideals as him, that maybe, going down a deep dark rabbit hole here, but maybe that there's a connection. Hey, Karen, welcome to the K Club. So yeah, I'm not saying that this is what happened, because I don't think, I've always thought that we're never really going to know the truth of what happened to her. She had partially packed suitcases found. She had told someone, possibly it was the aunt, that she was getting ready to make a big announcement. Um, there was rumors that she may have been pregnant. I don't think that was ever proven to be true. Um, I think, she had been unalive from the day she disappeared. So by the time they did find her, there wasn't a whole lot left to find. And it was in a very secluded, wooded area of this park. It's amazing that this beautiful park is, right in DC. I don't think I ever saw it. I might have, but that was so many years ago that I lived there, but I don't remember ever visiting this location, this Rock Creek Park. I definitely heard of it, but I don't think during the time that we lived in Maryland that I was ever there, because I was there for such a short amount of time. But I just thought that this was interesting. Let me just read some of the comments. Rita Close says she remembers. Diane says, howdy, folks. Okay, we've seen that. Arizona Desert Walker. We live behind Jackson's Amusement Safari Great Adventures. You know what, Arizona Desert Walker? I've actually been to Jackson, New Jersey as a child with my friends that were from California. And we went to Six Flags, The Great Adventure, and we also drove through the safari park. They have the safari in Atlanta, or at least they did when I was a kid, because that was the closest one to where I grew up. So I've been to the one in Atlanta at least 2 times, possibly 3 times. I've been to the one in Jackson, New Jersey, which was great. Oh, I had the time of my life there, but I was a kid. And I've also once visited the Six Flags Magic Mountain, and going across country a couple times. I've stayed in a hotel that's, I think it was a Holiday Inn, that's right next door to the one in St. Louis. And, there's the fence that, separates the hotel from the park, but I've never been inside of it. There's also one now in one of the towns I lived in as a baby up in Vallejo, California, but never been to that one. But I have been to Jackson, New Jersey, and apparently it's smack dab between New York City and Philly, like about 45 to 50 miles each direction. It's like right in the middle. So, and the view, they had one of the largest Ferris wheels in the world, and I had never been on a Ferris wheel, but I rode it multiple times, and you could just see for miles, because New Jersey, there's the Jersey Pine Barrens, and even though that wasn't actually in the Pine Barrens, there's still a lot of foliage and trees and shrub, and you could just see for miles on end of just forest. It was beautiful. So that's amazing. You've been there. That's going a long ways back in my memory. Oh, another Karen, Karen Dunn. Wow, we've got Kims and Karens. The K Club. Where are the Kellys today? We had Kathy in here, but Kathy with a C. And our new member, everybody, welcome Sassy Granny 8. She became a member last night or yesterday. So yeah, I don't know if a lot of people are going to see this video. A lot of people probably don't care about something that happened more than 25 years ago, but I just remember this case very well. I was a lot younger then than I am now. Still older than Chandra, because I guess she was 24 and I was probably in my 30s when this happened. and I'm old as dirt now. So I was glad to see that her parents are, they're still alive, but they must be, I don't know, 70s or 80s by now. It's an interesting interview, and all you have to do is, go online, go onto YouTube, and just type in Chandra Levy and look under videos, and you'll see. I think it aired on News Nation. You'll see the video where the parents gave the interview about the what happened. Um, OU 812. I remember that. That's the name of a Van Halen album. I haven't heard of this case in a long, long time. Me neither. And I woke up this morning to hear all this, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Um, they did find who did it. Well, maybe, maybe not. They did put somebody away for 60 years, but then he got released a few years later and deported. But what's the big news today is that the parents have made this news interview where they're talking about a possible connection between her disappearance and the people that are currently disappearance because of um, possible UFO disclosure coming. It's really interesting. Those baboons were aggressive to car passengers. Oh, you mean at the safari at the Six Flags Great Adventure? Oh, it was such a long time ago. I do know. I know a lot about Van Halen. In fact, I lived miles from Eddie and Val for years, and I knew Val like way way back in the day, and I've seen Wolf, but only when he was little baby Wolfie. But I never met Wolf. But I did stand in a supermarket line once with Eddie by himself while he was buying the wine and the TV dinners. And he was trying to, like hide himself. I remember that. They would come down the hill in Studio City, and I lived in Studio City, so and I remember Val from One Day at a Time. I was there for season 9. Um, it's a long story, but I've never actually got to see him in concert. Oh, I love Wolf Van Halen. I love him. In fact, he went to the school right next to my Studio City townhouse. It was in the Brady Bunch neighborhood. There's a little private celebrity kids school there, and a lot of celebrity kids attend there. But he departed high school at age 15 to go on the road and become a member of Van Halen. Now I've heard that later on he did get his education somehow. Um, let's see. Where is Nancy Guthrie? I don't know. I wish I did because I'd make another call to the FBI and say, hey, this is where she's at. Because they don't really care about the suspects anymore. They just want to know where she's at. Why did the crazies not collect the money? That is the crazy part of this, isn't it? I love your shirt. I'm an old deadhead. Only 7 shows. You know what? I got a bunch of these online, but I have never seen the Grateful Dead. And I'm not like I wouldn't call myself a deadhead, but I do like their music. Um, yeah, the money was not sent. There was a small portion that was deposited in the account from the beginning, but it was never collected. Welcome in, peace from Denise. Can you please help me with what? This is a true crime discussion. I'm almost afraid to ask. Peace from Denise says, "Hi, y'all." Yeah, this is an old case. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, "What is she talking about? And what about Nancy Guthrie?" And I did hear some more about Nancy Guthrie last night, but I don't think it's pertinent. Oh, thank you, Karen. I don't know if you guys remember in a prior video, I talked about that hokey news article that came from the Hindustan Times. And they're like, oh, well, they found a piece of evidence in Colorado. They found an abandoned SUV and it had her fitness tracker bracelet or something in it. Well, now another YouTuber last night who makes a lot of shorts on Nancy Guthrie was saying that she heard the report too, but a lot of people are saying that that report is sus, and I think it's sus because they said her disappearance date was March 12th. But now there's other YouTubers that are starting to catch on to this, going, "Oh, I heard about this case, and her there was an SUV that was abandoned in Longmont, Colorado." And I think originally I'd heard that the Boulder police was involved, and now they're saying no, it was the Boulder Sheriff's Department, and they detained someone who had been detained in the past, and people are pointing fingers towards Luke, and that it was the Range Rover. I don't believe any of that. Like Luke is going to leave a piece of evidence in a Range Rover when he may not even be involved in it. Don't even go down those articles when as soon as you read them, they talk about her disappearing on March the 12th. Now, maybe there was a language barrier and they meant to say that this SUV was found on March the 12th. Whatever it is, I heard another YouTuber who makes a lot of, actually, she makes really good shorts, but a lot of the information is bogus. So, I thought this isn't even worth making a video unless there is something more to it and it comes out because they're like, oh no, the sheriff's confirmed this. And if there was a big piece of evidence like that, like an SUV that had possible DNA from Nancy or had some of her personal belongings, trust me, like every news outlet would be talking about it. You are a head chef in Dubai. Well, awesome. I don't know how I can help you here. We're talking about true crime. We're talking about Chandra Levy, and we're talking a little bit about Miss Nancy Guthrie. Oh, I knew this was coming. Goodbye. Um, oh, gee. I even get orphanages now that are from Nigeria that are like, please, please contribute. And then they chase down all my other videos and comment for a few days. And then when I don't respond, I never hear from them again. And their orphanage does not seem to be legitimate. So, oh gosh, I know. Peace from Denise. It's the joys of monetization. I was trying to skip the comment, and they kept pushing. Like, there's nothing I can do to help. It's just some sort of a scam coming. There'll be other comments now on some of my other videos telling me where to send the money. You know, it's funny though. I'm a detective of 42 years. Like 35 years full time until, the big C happened, but now I'm disabled. Still have my PI license, but pretty much retired at this point. So, um, yeah, Chef Dubai, you're going to have to go bother somebody else with that. Well, it's a slow video today. Not a lot of people are coming in because, thank you, Karen. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this new information about Chandra Levy. I asked earlier, a couple people said they had heard about her or they remember her. Does anybody remember Chandra Levy? Does anybody remember her parents? Does anybody remember the guy? This uh, Gondike or something like that from El Salvador that was sentenced but then later released and let go and sent back to El Salvador. He's just, disappeared off the face of the earth. He may or may not have been involved. He was allegedly involved in the assault of two other women, like young women in that same area. That was just, it's so long ago. But now to connect that case to what's going on currently, that's what makes it a very interesting, appealing, story that makes you think. Because I was not aware that Senator or Congressman, actually, Gary Condit may have been involved in the UFO community. And something, caused her to disappear. Oh, here we go again. Oh, before I took her out, I should have reminded her that she needs to go on the Amazon wish list and that she can. I've got a new electric toothbrush up there, and I've got the Colgate dental pen up there if anybody wants to spring for it. Peace from Denise remembers. Quentin Broom says, I remember it. Big news. Everybody thought Condit was involved. You were in Virginia. I was already back in California at that time. I forgot the part that she was originally from Cleveland, but I guess as a child they had moved to Modesto, California. And that, I remember that the congressman was the congressman in, her parents' district where they lived. And I had forgot the part that she had gone to USC to get a master's in public administration. I think her first degree was journalism. She was smart, but she was only 24 years old. And I wouldn't want to say that she was immature. I definitely wouldn't call her dumb or stupid. Um, I don't know. She just seemed ill-informed about certain things. I don't know. I'm trying to look for the right word. When someone's just not made aware of something, they're not stupid, but there's a piece of the puzzle that they don't know or see. She was young. Things happen. But, it wasn't, yeah, she did have an affair with a married congressman. And apparently it's reported he was having an affair with another woman as well. And, he was a dirty dude. But she was young and maybe starstruck. Who knows? Maybe he promised her the moon. I don't know. But, her family, they were aware that she had, I guess, very private, conversations with her aunt about it. And then she disappeared and found more than a year later. And even the coroner was not able to fully determine her cause of death. They said it's possible strangulation, but they couldn't really prove that based on what little remains, I guess, were found. And then her parents then hired private investigators, and apparently they went out and researched the area, and they found like a shin bone. That's unexcusable that, once she was found, that they didn't recover everything that there was to recover. Well, what's going on now is that her parents went on to News Nation like within the last day or so. It's just now breaking news. They went on News Nation and they reported that because she was a believer in UFOs and Gary Condit, as a congressman, worked on some type of government projects regarding UFOs, allegedly, that her disappearance, I guess, could be connected to all these other people that have recently disappeared, either disappeared or been found unalived in the last couple of years. Government workers, defense contractors, scientists, that missing general. They also connected all of that to John F. Kennedy's assassination and the death of Marilyn Monroe, and that this kind of thing's been going on for years. That there's, according to them, their words, not mine, that there's a secret CIA operation that's been taking all these people out, and that it's happening a lot more now because of President Trump making the statement that he wants full UFO disclosure. And even though this was, 25 years ago, that there could be a connection in a way. They're not saying for sure, but they're going down that rabbit hole. Peace from Denise says, yes, I watched Nancy G, meaning Nancy Grace, I assume, regarding many who disappeared this AM. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a video about that too. And since I think it was actually, we talked about it on a live. And since then, several more names have been added to the list that do seem rather suspicious. I think some guy died in a weird Tesla fire, but Teslas are known to catch fire. But that was suspicious. And there's some other person that they just mentioned. I think it was a woman. Now her disappearance is being, rethought, about, well, what really happened with her. And the list is growing longer, so much so now that you can't really just chalk it all up to coincidences. So, yeah, okay. Oh, disappearing people that had off themselves. Well, maybe, including Marilyn Monroe. That goes back a long ways. That goes before my time, as does John F. Kennedy. But they've been debating that my entire life, and it happened before I was born, about what really happened. And so they're just throwing it out there, and they are elderly, but it seems that they're still interested in finding the truth. And I can't blame them. They're her parents. And they want to know what really happened. And you know, with all these years later, it'll probably never really be known. And I debated even making this video, but I just remember that case very well. And I remember, she was a pretty young girl, and I don't know, maybe got involved with the wrong people, and it ended tragically. It was sad. She'd probably, be a very successful person today if she were still alive. And it's terrible. I'm sure the parents are brokenhearted forever, as will the Guthrie family, not knowing, even if they find Nancy, but they don't really ever know the exact truth. It's going to be tough. It already is tough. But at least for the Levys, they do have some of their daughter's remains. And I don't want to get too gory here about it, but yeah, it's quite fascinating to just see them on, this video all these years later. Rita Close, she knew too much. It's very possible, Rita. I mean, they're not, they're not stupid people either, like the parents. I was trying to think of the word yesterday, and with all the the medical treatment I've had, and then the heart thing, like sometimes my brain will get stuck on a word, and it's like, well, she wasn't stupid, she wasn't dumb. Was it just what I want to say, ignorant or immature? Although I don't necessarily know that she was immature. She was very young and living on her own in a big city, and ill-informed, maybe. I just can't think of the right word to describe how I feel about her, Like she was definitely very smart and pretty and, you know, naive, possibly. Yeah, that's a good word, Lori Smith. Um, it's just interesting. You guys, when you have time, you should go check out their interview. Just do a Google search or a YouTube search. It's not too long. It's a few minutes long. You can see the parents' most recent interview with News Nation, and they don't sound like they've gone off the deep end, or that they're mentally not well, or it doesn't come across that way at all. And they're not saying that this is a definite. They're just saying that this is a possibility. And to this day, I still believe that the congressman may have been involved, but that's never been proven, and he's never been charged. He did refuse to take a polygraph by the police, but he did end up taking a private polygraph test. Naivety. Yeah, it's sad. She had a bright future, and she had 24 years. Miss Nancy, she apparently had 84. She had another 60 years on her. But it's interesting now to look back at it per her parents' perspective, that this may be more than what they originally believed. I don't think they even had a clue about that years ago. I don't think that crossed their minds. I think they suspected that he wasn't being truthful on all that he knew, but I don't think they went down the UFO rabbit hole until more recently, since, Trump brought up that he would like full UFO disclosure, and then all these people started disappearing. And then they started, in their minds connecting the dots and going, could this be a possibility? Oh, thank you for coming, Peace from Denise. Thank you for subbing. I really appreciate it. Every view helps. Every subscriber helps. So welcome in, friend. Well, unless there's anything else here, unless you guys want to ask something about this, I'm going to make this short. Going to go watch. I think the Dodger Cardinal game is actually on Fox today, so everybody can get a free view. Yeah, my teeth do look yellow on camera, but in person, in the mirror, in the bathroom, where I have mirrored closets, they don't look that way at all. And they certainly don't look that way under the lights, the bright lights that I just faced at the dentist's office. So, oh yeah, the Derby that's today, right? Lori Smith. I saw little Danny Lynn looking gorgeous. I've seen a lot of the press about that. Is that today? Is that this afternoon? Yeah, I don't follow horse racing very much. Hello, Deanna. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming in. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you to my new member who signed up yesterday, who's now a subscriber as well. I really appreciate that. Every little penny helps. I do have my final totals for April, and some of it I consider a success, and some of it I don't, because most of the income that I think will be paid to me at the end of May is coming from the super chats rather than the views, and I really need to get the views up. But I certainly appreciate all the donations, the super chats, everybody that's bought a gift. I have to make another trip to the mailbox next week to pick up a couple things that just were ordered last night. Thank you for coming. And if there's anything else that you guys hear about this, please place something in the comments after the fact. I appreciate everybody that came in and listened to me. Have a good afternoon.